Hello, this is Suzanne Wachtel, and today's topic is a very sensitive topic and a difficult topic, but a very necessary topic. It's concerning losing a child to addiction. So many of us have lost and lose children to addiction every day, every year, and it's so hard to wrap your head around and to cope with as a parent of either a young man or woman that life ends due to an overdose, accidental overdose on drugs. So I just thought it would be very important to talk about it. Many parents, I've had groups about it. I am also a member of that club. I lost a son 11 years ago at 27 years old to an overdose of heroin. I had no idea that he even had tried heroin, let alone would die from it. It was sudden, it was very unexpected and very shocking. It's called sudden death when somebody dies suddenly like that out of the blue. As a therapist and as somebody who grew up in Europe and have a full-time practice, I'm pretty much aware and exposed to a gamut of things, from addiction to parenting. I grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, right, during the drug era. So I would consider myself before then to be pretty hip and aware of what goes on and to know if your child was an addict or using serious drugs. But to be quite honest with you, I had no idea. And so when we got the news at 4 a.m. from the police showing up at our house to tell us that our son had passed away from a drug overdose in Vermont, it was quite a shock. And from there, what happens after the shock, it becomes like this, you almost have like an out-of-body experience. You go numb, you kind of freak out. It's very, very complicated. So after finding out that news, the next step was to figure out the logistics of what do you do? Do you ship the body? There's a lot of details involved when you lose someone and it's sudden like that, and especially your child. So I just wanted to make this podcast for other parents and other family members and friends that have suddenly lost someone, whether it's a child, a friend, a family member, to addiction. So when people come to me to talk about their person that they lost, many of the feelings surrounding the event are very complicated. It's actually called complicated grief. Many of the feelings are guilt. Could you have done something differently? As a parent especially, the feelings are so complicated. My feelings were guilt, not shame, because I just felt like I wasn't going to go there, and I wanted other people to know that even I can lose a child to something like addiction and an overdose. So I wanted to be transparent about that, the cause of death. But I did question myself, like, should I have gone to visit? Was I too lenient? Could I have been stricter? Should I have done tough love? He did experiment with drugs, oh my God, a lot through high school and college. But never anything that I knew of that was life-altering or that could kill you. So I never maybe took it as seriously as I should have. And that is my truth. So when this happened, I decided to really be my best self, to be an example for other parents, and to go through my grief as best as I could and be the best person I could, because I had other children that needed me that were grieving as well, and grandchildren and a husband. So I did not have the luxury to go into victim and to shut down and to just, not be as high functioning as I possibly could be. I have a friend who years ago, and this stuck with me, her sister had passed away when she was 17. The sister was 24, a car accident. And when she died, the older sister, the parents shut down completely. And it really damaged and devastated my friend emotionally. The parents refused to celebrate birthdays anymore or holidays. And really what I learned from that story is that life is for the living. And we are all going to die. We don't know how or when, but we must do our best to be there to support the survivors. And so it just so happened that when my son died, we were moving anyway. He was going to move with us to Florida from New York. And so we decided to accelerate our plan and just pack up and move that much sooner. We chose not to have a funeral, but to have a life party to celebrate his life. One of my friends generously offered her home, and we made it into a huge party. There must have been hundreds and hundreds of people that showed up to pay their respects to our son and to tell stories and to reminisce. And we're Jewish, so we hired a woman, a rabbi, to come and do a religious ceremony, not too long, just to honor him. And whoever wanted to spoke. And it was actually quite a beautiful testimonial to our son's life. After that, we got very busy packing up, sorting through his things, our things, packing up and getting ready to move. And so we did. We moved to Florida. And I went through many different emotions. I went through sadness, where out of nowhere I'd burst into tears. I'm not a crier typically. I'd get angry that he made that choice, angry at myself for not realizing that he was dabbling with drugs that were life-taking, like heroin. And then there was this detached feeling of numbness that surrounded me a lot. So when I moved to Florida in this state of grief, my daughter was grieving, my husband was grieving, and I just decided to do what I could to heal, like self-care, yoga, nature, just finding quiet. Quiet was very helpful. Quiet and therapy, grief therapy was wonderful. Finding other parents that were going through similar experiences. And really, no one can quite understand what it feels like. I hate to say that, but it's true. It's not a bragging right. It's just a truth. That unless you lose a child to drugs like this, it's impossible to understand the feelings that you go through. So, as a result, I did a lot of grief work. I'm a, licensed clinical social worker. I have a private practice, which I did start up in Florida. I had one in New York, but I started a new one in Florida. And little by little, I did talks. But in the very beginning, I decided that I needed to know more. So I took a job at a rehab, a day program, 2 days a week, near my home, not far. And I decided to do a group for the addicts because I didn't understand. I was always confused, like, did I do something wrong? Was it my fault? Why would he choose drugs? We were an intact family, a loving family, a supportive family. It just didn't make sense to me. So I took a job, and once and twice a week I would go to this rehab, and the addicts that were in recovery, I would say, would range different walks of life, educated to uneducated, from 18 to say 65. And they were all there in recovery. And I would walk into the group and everyone would look at me like, ugh, another therapist. And I would look at them and say, I'm really sorry. I'm not really here to help you. I'm here for you to help me. And that got their attention. And they would say, what? Yep. I said, my son died of an overdose, and I don't get it. Can you help me understand? And I will tell you, this became probably the best therapy that they had. So in a very open environment, I was able to ask all the difficult questions, to ask why. And many of the addicts were addicted to a variety of things. Some were there for pot, some were there for crack, some were there for heroin, opioids. There wasn't one particular alcohol. There was not one particular drug that was the main drug. I would say heroin at the point 11 years ago was very, very popular because it was cheap, and the opioid pills were no longer available as easily and were very expensive. So that became a new epidemic. But what I got to understand from asking them honestly and them really being transparent and truly helping me was that once you try a certain drug and your brain loves it and you have the addiction gene, your brain just wants it. You can reason with it as much as you want. It just wants that feeling. And then I said, well, was I too lenient? They said, no. The parents that were doing the tough love, they felt it was removing love from kids that, or adults or people that needed it the most. So the only time it was appropriate, they felt, to do tough love is if the addiction was so extreme that you were either, the addict was becoming violent or unsafe to be around, stealing, lying, which is all part of addiction. It's part of the personality that comes with it. But if it was that extreme, then it was important to remove ties with the addict. But other than that, they felt that, being understanding, helping, loving, and that it takes sometimes many, many, many relapses for somebody, the person, the addict themselves, has to decide that they want to be sober. And there's nothing you can do as a parent, as law enforcement. I mean, obviously, if you get arrested and put in jail, it's very difficult to get a stream of drugs every day. But it is really something that drives the addict, and there's very little you can do. And as a mother, and as a father, and as a family member, it's very important to forgive yourself and understand that it's not your fault. I had an 86-year-old man come to me whose son he had supported through the ups and downs, arrests, rehabs for 40 years. And the son had finally died in his 60s. And he came to me brokenhearted, feeling like it was his fault. And once he had one session, it's all he needed to understand it was not his fault, that he could let go of the guilt, that he did the best he could, that addiction won. He was set free. So I would say that losing a child to addiction is a very unique experience. And losing a child to anything is a horrible experience. It's very, very traumatic, hugely life-altering. But you can find peace, and you can find forgiveness, and you can get through it and live a wonderful life in spite of it. So I am here to tell you that yes, I lost a child to addiction, and it's 11 years later, and I've done a lot of work to find the peace and to find the love, and he has never left me. He's still in my mind, in my heart every day, and he's a part of my world. But unfortunately, physically, he's not here anymore, and I accept that, and I send him love every day. And that's it. I just felt that this was a very important topic to disclose, especially for parents that are recently experiencing the loss of a child, and also for those that that are having trouble moving forward in their lives, please. The one thing I learned from losing my son was that life can be gone in a moment, and it is very, very important to enjoy every day, because no matter how, who, why, or what, we are all going to die. The only difference is we don't know how, we don't know when, and we don't know why. So please, my message to you is to enjoy every breath, every day, while you can. Have a beautiful day. Peace.